Is that it?
Perfect. Yeah.
Oh, right.
Lucky. I want to tell you a little bit about why I did this. Way back when I was doing the Northwestern Modeler, why we did a lot of different industries, and propane was one of them. And these seeds of that are in this. And Lloyd was interested in some trucks, and Clark was interested in building a platform to unload. And so this is kind of behind the time. I should have had this before they got, but I didn't realize anybody was too interested in it. So anyway, this is some photos that I've picked up and about propane. So there's a brief history, and let me see. Okay. So propane gas leaks out of the ground. It's been there forever, and in the United States, some of the explorers found that the Indians were using it in 1626 by they lighting the leakage out of the ground. And in 1885, why Bunsen made the Bunsen burner, which if you went to school and had any chemistry classes, I'm sure you had a Bunsen burner.
Yeah.
So natural gas to begin with was probably used as much for street lights as anything. And then they started using it for cooking and hot water heaters and things of that nature, and heating your house. Natural gas has no smell. So in 1937, after a large explosion, why the state of Texas passed a law that they would have to put odor in the natural gas. Now, in my case, my mother-in-law lived in Arkansas, and there was a natural gas well on the property. And she could get natural gas for free from that, but it would not have what they call the skunk in it, which was the odor. So she decided she didn't want to do that. It was too dangerous. Her husband was a pipeline welder and generally worked on natural gas lines. Just to tell you how natural gas works, whether in oil, everybody on the section that a natural gas well is in gets paid a royalty if you have the mineral rights. In the case of oil, that's different. I guess they pay by the gallon that they pump out. So in the early stages, of course, we had a rather minor part of it. So we would get enough that maybe we could go down and get a couple of hamburgers. So it was no big deal, I can tell you. All right. Now what's wrong here? I can't seem to go to the next. Somebody needs to tell me why my thing is not advancing. So butane is some of the earliest forms of heating and gas for cooking. Butane is still around. Butane is mixed a little with the LP, and your LP comes from mainly two places: the gas stream in the oil and gas production, and is part of the oil refining process in its natural state. And when it's compressed to 110 pounds of PSI, it becomes a liquid. It's propane is saturated liquid, so ambient temperature affects the pressure in the storage vessel. They only fill those to 80% because of that reason. The early tank cars, they were in the 11,000 gallon range. And then, of course, they started building larger tank cars as times went on. Today, natural gas is used a lot, as mainly in pipelines, although a lot of it's shipped by truck. If you're into the far out regions, like up in the northern part of Maine, I think you still see some coming in by railroad. That's used a lot in the Corn Belt for drying corn. I think last year we had a little bit of a problem in getting enough of it. Anyway, today they can be in 34,500 gallon tank cars. So here's a picture of a butane company down in Texas. And I didn't realize they used it in as in the refrigerant, but I guess you can, if you know how air conditioning and things like work, you get rid of the heat. And that part of the reason why you need butane to do that with. Somebody there might be able to tell me better how that works. Nobody?
Hmm.
They use
Anyway,
the
something
butane
for
just like a refrigerator.
you heat it to cool it.
They heat it to cool it, right?
So if you want to know more about it, why you'll see these. I have captured the address of these pictures, and you should take a peek at some of the websites because some of them have some very good information on what how propane and things are used and what the history of them are.
Gonna say my first house was gas air conditioning. Central area.
That's probably you don't see that, I don't think, much anymore.
No, and I bought it, let's see, in 78, so it was near the end, the machine was near the end of its time.
So back in those days, why Dan Holbrook was helped me a lot with the different railroad stuff, and so this is what he sent me, and I decided it was probably something we ought to talk about a little bit. The early ones are 10 and 12 gallon, 1,000-gallon cars, and 60 they started to increase to 30 and 34. So it depends on when you are modeling. If you're pre-60, you're probably looking at 10 to 12,000 gallon cars. We'll look at those in a few minutes. And so anyway, I'll let you read that for a minute and go on. So that's what the DOT placard should look like on your car. And if the placard is shown, it means that there is in fact gas in the car. If it's half folded, it probably means that there is residue in it. Usually they don't take the placards totally off because unless the car is cleaned, there's always some kind of residue left. So this shows you the DOT type car.
Ron,
go
they
ahead.
say the half empty car or even just fumes in it is way more dangerous than
A full car.
than a full car, right?
So anyway, the original ones were DOT 112, 114, and now we're into the 105 and 120. And this, they have a lot of marking on them. And this screenshot shows where all the marking is. I've even seen some that have it on the top so that if you're the car tips over, why you can see what's in it, and you can see it from the air. So these are some of the old cars, and this one has if my cursor works here, this one has a simple unloading device, which if you don't want to build one of those whole platforms, look how simple you could build that. But you want to notice there are 3 hoses. We'll get into that, but all of the LP type stuff has 3 hoses. The other thing is the type of hood, or what we might call the dome on top of the car, which is they don't have any ventilation on a high pressure type car. So this one says the placard being empty because there's nothing on it. kind of notice how the ends of those change. Some of them are round end, some of them are not at round end. I'm not sure all cars have to be insulated. The one before with the, if I can go backwards, I'm not sure I can. Okay. This car probably is insulated because if you can see how the end is different than the next car. Apparently this is either used for butane or propane. That would be a nice car to have on your layout, a nice green car.
I think the difference in those cars also might have been that the real round end, it's a welded car versus where this end it could be I don't know if it's welded or riveted.
Yeah, I think most of these are welded cars, and I don't know that any of these, none of them show that they are insulated cars. And I am not a big car man, so I will let somebody else who knows about this talk about it. But you can see how when you see the device to hold the car on the truck, that makes me think that this is an insulated car. And now we're getting into the bigger cars. I'm not sure we find any of those today that big. They're more like the one we just passed. That would be a car that you would see today, I think. These were taken, as you see, in 2014, so they're pretty new. And this one is down in St. Louis, and that's a huge car. I'm not sure how many of those they made, but they're
Wasn't very many, I think. I saw someplace I saw where they only built like 2 or 3 of them.
yeah. What they didn't last long either. I don't know. They,
Yeah,
for whatever reason, they were too difficult to. And maybe they didn't track well. I'm not sure. I don't have the history of it.
The one that was in Galveston was destroyed during Hurricane Ike, I think it was. Uh, the storm surge floated it away and they scrapped it.
So this shows what happens when you load and unload a car. What is missing here is that the main line, the fluid line, there's usually 2 of them. I've never found any that just has one, but they take the gas out of the tank, their storage tank, pump it into the railroad car. That forces the gas, the liquid gas, into the storage tank. And once they get the tank empty, they turn around and they take and pump the vapor back out of the tank car back into the storage tank. And there is a very typical, the way the tank cars look. On each side will be the gas lines, or will be the fluid lines, and the one in the middle will be the gas line. Of course, they have a lot of valves and stuff there. I always thought it would be kind of neat to make a car and connect the hoses. I suppose you just have to leave it there all the time, but it'd be kind of a neat display. So here's what it looks like inside the car. You notice that the pipes don't go all the way down to the bottom. The gas, the fluid unloading and loading pipes. And they have a lot of safety valves and stuff involved in that. I guess properly it's called the bonnet, not the dome. And there's a picture of the bonnet right there, showing all of the valves that go with it. And you see this guy is unloading. You see how small this pipe is? So that's the vapor line. These two are the fluid lines coming out the side. Oh, there's a gauge on here, which told him, I guess, what was happening to the vapor line. So this is the top of one of those bonnets that would have 3 of these openings. This one would be for the vapor. There'll be one on this side, one on the other side over here. For the 2 lines that for fluid and the 1 line for vapor. And here's just another car, a picture of it. And our friend Mont was in the hauling of dangerous fluids, and so I asked him to send me a picture of his latest propane truck that he had, and so there it is. So if you're going to bring your tank car in there, you want to make sure you have your stop signs so that nobody moves that car while you're unloading it. And you can see this unloading platform here is on probably a 4 to 6 inch pipe, which I think makes this a rather new installation. Because as we look in a little bit farther, we'll see that the older ones were on angle iron and steel uprights. So here's an older one. Notice there's no pipe in here. They have 4 legs sticking out, but it's still the same. 3 hoses. You got a platform to go over to the bonnet so that you can walk over to it. This one shows the warehouse. A lot of the warehouses were actually open to the end. I think that's what you see through the window here. Most of them that I've seen are not totally closed up. And a lot of them have the tanks on the outside. This is probably the pump house right here. It looks like they had an additional tank because the tank platform doesn't have anything on it. So here's a close-up of one of those platforms that this will fold down on top of the car. That's why the counterweight is on here. And the fluid lines are in red, vapor lines are in yellow. So you've got the 2 fluid lines connecting to the 1 red pipe. So if you're going to build one, should get out your red and yellow paint. Here's another older one. This one would be a straight up ladder with a safety cage around it, but again, it's on 4 upright pieces of steel. And another one that's in Arkansas. That whole thing is gone now. There's nothing there. The railroad is there, but the propane people have moved out and built a new installation somewhere. Probably trucked in now. So now let's look at some newer ones. You see that these are on a big piece of pipe. I'm guessing about a 6 inch, maybe bigger. That might be 10 inch. And of course, now they have a different walkway. It's easier to get up on there to do their unloading. Big new car. I'm sure the pump house is right here now. This is one down in Florida. This one is big enough that they were able to unload 2 cars at a time. You should note that these ventilators here, they are pressure ventilators. And the reason there are 3 is because of the size of the tank. So the smaller the tank, the less number of ventilators you'll have. I don't have the rules on what sizes need 3. I think the one from Walters may only have 2, and there are different kinds of vents.
Notice that the pipe has gussets where it goes into the concrete. Triangular gussets down at the bottom.
Now, let me go back.
You can see it in this photo.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're old missiles.
Apparently, they had room problems, so one ladder goes one way, the other ladder goes the other way. I think the point to show you these is that you know, although there's a general building, they build them generally the same. They're still almost all different.
They also have that common feature of where the platform folds up right onto the tank car.
Yeah. You remember on one of that early tank car where there was no platform at all? That guy must have had to climb up there and pull hoses up behind him. So that was an early way to do it. I thought this car or this slide probably needs to be studied if you're going to build one. Then if you ever want any of these pictures, just tell me the number of the slide and I can send it to you. But that shows you the sizes of the tanks versus the volume. Here's one showing the pump and when they're talking about the bobtail loading, I think they're talking about the truck loading coming in, transport loading going out. Maybe I've got those backwards. Bobtail being the one going to the house and the transport from the big truck coming in. Notice that this tank probably is small enough, only needs 2 relief valves. They all have a manway to get in. They all have a gauge on them, and they almost always right there in the middle so that they know how full a tank is. And I guess a thermometer is necessary to them. So if you build one, at least need the gauge on the end.
Yep.
So here's one that's all the pump is. All you need is a little pump like that. Not a big deal. And here shows one on a concrete foundation. And this particular company has done a lot to color code all their pipes. They have 2 relief valves up there. They have a walkway to get up there to if they want to inspect anything.
You need.
Here's a more modern one. Again, just 2 relief valves, a ladder on there, and so now we're starting to see some signage. They have the triangle, and of course the pump is down in here, and here's the pump to fill the small delivery trucks. I saw that White Mountain had a website, and I emailed the company, and they sent me a whole bunch of photos about how things were done. This was one of their better photos of unloading a tank car. I think that's in Vermont, as I remember. The company is still there, so you'll be able to look at it and see what else they have. They're a big oil dealer besides LP. There was an old picture I found, interesting trucks. I take it that there are more than one tank here because these look a little odd.
Yep.
It's like there's 3 tanks, probably the pump house. Different size tanks, concrete. Most of the platforms I saw had concrete platforms to hold the tank up. Oh, I to point out, there's a different type of relief valve. And this is a pretty common warehouse where it's all open. They do have some closed in area over here, but they may also be in the oil business. I'm not sure of that, but I suspect they leave it that way in case there's any leakage. So here we see one with a warehouse here and the piping and probably the pump house behind. Their big storage tank over here. I found this one. I thought that was just kind of unusual. The way the tanks are in the truck and the fact that it's a big block building with all kinds of windows and stuff in it. And I suppose that everything is inside. There were no other pictures to go with this, so I'm not sure if there was any outside tanks or not. So then I was looking at the tanks. Now, I think most of us saw tanks like this when we were younger, without any kind of cage around it. But today, they have a protection here so that you can't break off the valve. Back then, you just screwed on the top on the tank. Now, you do still see this in oxygen settling and things like that, but I don't think you'll find it on new LP or new LP tanks. So I'm not sure. I tried to find a early small tank, and this is the best I could find. Now, it has the protection around it the same as this one does. I'm not sure why this one is called the older tank.
They have different valves now.
Yep, it's the valve system. What you notice, that's exactly what it is. It's the valves.
Ah, very good.
Notice one is a ball type and one is the old, see the one on the left has it's the old style, and then the one on the right is the new ball style valve. That is a much better valve.
And on the inside, there is what the equivalent of a toilet bowl float inside
Right.
that are built into those things. So when you carry them, you don't put them on the side. Don't put them on their side in your car. They have to sit up straight.
Good.
And they're only good for about 6 years.
Well, they have to be inspected. But generally, if you've got one that's dated, 2024, you can use it to 2030. And
Yeah,
after that, you can't get it refilled. You have to trade it in.
right.
And the propane dealer will check it out and make sure it's still up to safety standards.
I included these because I thought they had kind of unique tops on them, protection tops. So not all the tops were made the same. I presume these are really quite old.
The red one is.
So let's talk about the trucks for a minute. I didn't realize that there were some trucks with the dual tanks on until Lloyd was talking about the truck that he remembered with dual tanks. So I went looking and I found these two trucks. The one on the right's quite interesting, the round ball type, and the one on the left with two side ones.
the round ball ones I used to see in Florida when I was a kid.
The one on the left, which is indicated it is the US Forest Service,
God,
I think that's an LP tank truck, but I'm not positive because you can't, there's no real reason, nothing to show you that it is, but it doesn't have any manholes or anything on the top to fill it, which is normally a gasoline type truck.
I wonder if it's a fire truck. Cause it looks like it's got a railing that is
Right.
around an inside area there where the hoses and ladders it would be stored.
Well, that's a good
I-
possibility.
I
but
think Brian is right on. I think it's for
Water.
water,
it's a
water,
water
yep,
truck.
for pumping, in case of small fire.
But it is cool.
Yeah,
That
And
is,
that LP gas truck, I've never seen anything like that in my life.
that's a neat truck.
Baseball,
well, it's real close to this one.
Yeah.
those are weird.
I have to assume that the one on the left here, or one on the right, there probably might have been two tanks and because now it's just a parade truck. They have fitted it with seats. I'm
That's
guessing.
possible. That's possible.
These are
There
probably
we go.
we're more used to. But these are pretty old trucks. You can tell by the chassis on it being old. I think the one up at the top over here is a Rio. Not sure if this isn't a Ford. That's probably an International. Somebody can tell me that knows trucks better than I do.
That's a Ford.
Lower right is an IH, right? International.
I think that's an IH. Yeah,
By the grill, that looks like an IH.
yeah. I think that's a Rio up here.
Could be.
So if you're going to have one of these, you also need a little flatbed truck because you got to haul the tanks out. Now, some trucks have the tank holders on the side, but these were both from White Mountain, and that's what they used for delivery trucks.
LV10.
Now, these are the White Mountain trucks that the one that I built, I used for my model.
The other thing that's a little unusual about the truck on the right, those two tanks. I never saw many of them like that either. That had that got, you see the two bottle tanks on the
Mhm.
side.
I suspect that that's being an older truck. That was the way they did it. I don't think you'll see anything like that today. I thought this one was quite unusual.
Yes, it is.
So if you're going to get propane, you need some way to get your tank out, especially if you're using it for heating. And so this is an older hauler. I was able to find that in the auction area. I wanted to find one that was a little different than that, but I was unable to. The reason I thought this was maybe not, I'm not sure how they unloaded it because it looks like there's main pieces of steel behind it. I'm not sure. You can't just drop it down unless these things came out. Maybe they do come out.
Well, it looks like there's a steel rod that goes around the top of the tank that ties into that saddle.
Yeah, here's that rod you're talking about, and
And
here's
there's
the
one in the
saddle.
back.
I would assume that this is able to come out so that they can just drop that tank down. Whoops, pardon me. So they can just drop that tank down where they want it.
I don't see any way to detach it in the photo.
I don't need.
That may be for delivery with using like a pickup truck or something.
That's possible.
There's
Yep.
no winch.
This is a more modern one, and you can see how it can be dropped. They can drop the tank down wherever they want it.
Yeah. Surprised it's hydraulic cylinder. I would have thought it would be a chain hoist or something.
Yeah, I see the hydraulic up here. So there's a modern truck. And I
Yep.
put that in there because of all of the stuff that's on the back. You need pumps, you need the hoses, and you probably need a toolbox. All the tanks usually have a couple of areas up here so they could lift them off, lift rings. And they have a manhole, almost all of them do. You notice both of these do. And again, you have a valve,
Fuel gauge.
thank you, a fuel gauge on the back so they know how much there is in there. And today, of course, everything has signs all over the thing telling you what's in there.
Speaking of signs, back up one, Ron. That one, what's 1056?
That sign, 1056,
Yeah,
we could go back
not the,
to,
it's not the 1075 we're accustomed to.
I know, I would have to look up what 1056 is,
Okay,
and I'm not sure what it is.
I got a book. I can go look.
While we're looking at this picture, I noticed that the tail end of that tank seems to be sitting on a support that rests on those tubular frame rails.
Well, this area up in here is kind of interesting. Obviously, this thing is completely open, but you can't see enough detail here to know exactly how this works.
By the way, at 1056, according to the guides, it's Krypton, Krypton, compressed.
Hmm.
That's what I got it. This is a 90 book on, that's what the 1056 is.
So they got Superman in there.
I don't know, but I'm just going by what the description is. It's because you're 1059 or 58, it's all liquefied gas. 57, 58 are all liquefied gas.
so something very similar to the propane, but
It just says it's a compressed form is what it's
Yeah.
saying.
Notice these are all 1075s.
when you see a rail car going up and down the highway, up and down the tracks, most of them are 1075.
Yeah, and there are a lot of them too, aren't they yet?
Yeah, there are a bunch of them.
And that's liquid petroleum gas.
So Maynard Mitchell took a trip up in northern Michigan, and he thought someday he would build himself an LP operation. And so these are his photos he let me use. This, of course, is probably from Google or whatever, Google Earth. And you can see this company has 4 tanks, probably has a pump house here. This is probably their warehouse. And by looking at the end here, I kind of suspect that it's open. These look like they're open. I'm not sure whether there's the tank trucks in there or whatever. But what he took a lot of is all the different signs that they had. And because he thought if he built it, he wanted to have all the signs there. Now you notice that the one sign has a thing called propane emergency shutoff. You just go up there and hit that and everything stops. I'll tell you a story. When we were putting in telephone service in a pumping station in Illinois, why we were using a fish tape and pulling it into a box for pulling in telephone wire, and we accidentally hit something that we shouldn't have. Let me tell you, when that emergency shutoff goes off, it will scare the bejesus out of you. I thought the whole place was blowing up on us, and I mean it shut that thing down instantly. What they do is they pump natural gas from the south to big caverns in Illinois, in central Illinois, where they store it for the winter. And then in the summer or winter time, they don't have to pump it all away from Texas. And it happened where we were, the telephone company I was with, that their big storage area was in that area, which is around Champaign, if you want to know. Here's some of his pictures of the unloading device.
Typical.
There was an
Notice-
incident, there was an incident in Texas where one of those storage caverns exploded somewhere fairly close to Bryan College Station.
Notice their blue sign here that they put on the track. The green is kind of interesting because the yellow they have, but they've used green as one of their colors, opposed to red and yellow.
Notice that the right to the right of that valve is a witness glass, so you can see the fluid going past.
I see the glass there. So there were some more of the signs he took pictures of.
Oh,
Kind of interesting signs.
I would hope no smoking.
Spot your dome here, huh? So I thought I would pick up a few modeling things, and I mean, there is a lot of stuff out there on the internet on modeling. Since we went to 3D printing, lots of things have changed. Really got some really nice stuff. This being pretty new, this one be kind of an older unit. Here's one that Model Mechanic makes. Boy, that has got all kinds of detail on it. I think this one is, in fact, that's for a tandem axle, and I think that's the same as this one here, made by Boxcar Models. And then, of course, you can buy the new truck right now. You don't even need to build one if you're modeling present day type operation. And tanks are available. Let's see what
Or you can cast your own.
or you can cast your own. These are made by mini prints, what we were talking about a minute ago. And how about this small one here next to a penny? Last night, when he was talking about what mini prints is doing, he showed us a 3D printed frog. Now you can imagine how big a frog is in HO. So this is a Walters kit. They have a pretty simplified unloading platform, and I think they missed the hose that puts the vapor up in this. Because it doesn't really look quite right to me. So here's some more from Walters, which look closer. Now this is the one I built by GLX, and that's made out of wood. The whole thing is wood. And the biggest problem with that was making the ladder, which the ladder is not shown here. But that was really a problem making the ladder.
Ron, what year is that about?
What year is these?
The platform, yeah, what era?
Well, I would say that's our era, probably by 1970. Why you probably wouldn't see many that's on angle iron.
Okay,
By then, you'd probably have most of them on either 6-inch. Well, look at the ones here at the left.
yeah, the single pipe. Okay,
So I want to thank those people who sent me photos and information. that's, when I was doing this, I missed the fact that one of them everything did not get capitalized. Sorry, Dan. So that's my operation right there. Here you can see the steps going up there. That was the big problem in making, this is a strictly straight out of the Walthers. I'm not sure where I got these. There was a company that Tomar had for a while, and I think these came from the Tomar area when he still had the company. I think these are mini prints here. And this is the truck that I scratch built. Yeah, I consider this, you know, a vault truck, which the local undertaker no longer wanted. So I thought, okay, it worked just fine for hauling tanks around. I doubt if you'd ever see any of them in actual use like that. And that is it. That's all there is.
Most of the, when I was younger, I worked for a vault company, and they built 90% of everything they fabricated it themselves. So there was no, would be no form, you know, ready made, and we had 4 or 5 of them, and no 2 of them was alike.
Well, a local undertaker back in Tama, he built those vaults, or those the concrete down in his basement, and then he had a way to get them out of it. So when you had his service, you had his concrete vault, and then of course you put a gasket in it. So
Well, I tell you, I still heat with propane at my lake cabin, all cooking, furnace, etc. And they delivered my tank by a large pickup truck.
Hmm.
Literally sitting in a pickup truck, slid it off, put it in place.
Yeah.
well, a truck like this wouldn't be all bad, except that it's pretty big to back up into your yard to put one close to your house. I guess there is some regulations on how close the tank can be to a house.
Yeah, Jim Temple has all that info because he worked in that industry for a while.
All right. I'll get
Well
rid of
done,
it.
Ron. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Now, Ken, have you got something you want to show us?
I do, as soon as there we go. Okay,
There we go.
this is a set of dividers that I use to lay out handrails. And it works well. As you can see, there's a number scale up on here, and a little piece of rubber fuel line tubing to close it up. And it was like $4 on eBay, or excuse me, $4 on Amazon. It's a real handy tool for doing handrails. And this is where this whole talk is coming to with handrails. DCC Concepts. You guys get emails from them like daily?
No,
That be-
Okay, they're in England, and they have this handrail jig, and the spacing between these things is less than half the distance, half the thickness of a handrail. So if you want to make handrails very, very accurately, this thing really helps bending them. And
That's a great one.
pardon me?
That's a really good looking one.
It is. It's really nice. And there's a bunch of little holes over here too. It works out really well. Then we have the punches that you need to use to start the hole in a piece of plastic. The top one is an ancient starret that was in my great grandfather's or great granduncle's toolbox. Unfortunately, the tip on it is just too big, and it tends to smash the the plastic around the dimple you're making. The bottom one I got, believe it or not, those are titanium toothpicks that are on Amazon. They're $5 for 5 of them, including shipping. This tip here unscrews, and this is threaded, and you flip it around and put it back in the tube here. The point on it on the end is about the size of a number 80 drill bit. So when you dimple the hole to put a handrail in plastic, it doesn't distort the plastic very much. And now we come to, there's a close-up picture of it, of the two different ones. I have not used it to clean my teeth yet.
I use a needle in a pin vise,
I've done that too.
just a sewing needle in a pin vise with a brass tube handle.
Yep. Lester showed off his drill a couple of weeks ago or a month ago, and I thought that's really neat. It's got a speed control on it, going faster, going slower, and a light, and it looked pretty cool. So I ordered one, and it comes in this nice little carrying case with a whole bunch of tools in it that some you'll never use and some you'll use until they break. And I thought that's pretty cool. But the problem I had with it was when I turn it on, it's spinning already. And I didn't have good control of it because of my shake in my hands. And that's where this whole talk is going for, how to minimize that. What I did on this one is to put a push button right on the letter N on the label here. There's the inside of one, nicely molded. I wish it had maintained a straight tube here instead of this bulge, because I bought another one and I'm going to make a little drill press out of it. And that's going to cause a little bit of a problem because I have to offset it a bit on the slide. I bored a hole in the thing right where the motor sits. The motor comes as the unit. Does that motor look familiar or not?
Yes.
It is. It's just
Locomotive motor.
yeah. It's just a cheap ass. Excuse me. It's just a cheap Canon style motor, like a DN22 or something. This is the battery pack for it, the LED, and it drops in and out very easily out of this thing. There's the control panel. That's for the light. These are your speed controls and a whole bunch of diodes and an SCR here for speed control. This is the switch. Now I called them up, my local electronics store. We have one in town, still in existence. And I said, how much is one of these surface mount switches? And he goes, oh, they're $5.95 each. I said, okay, thanks. And I went on to Amazon and I bought 125 of them for $3.95. So if you guys ever want any, I got plenty. I added a drop of glue, of thick crazy glue on the top of this. Okay, so I built the height of it up. And that's the bottom side. I cut 2 of these off because they were not needed. The 2 on the sides are the switch, momentary switch. I cut 2 of them off. I mounted them on a pad. I substituted one wire from that would normally go to the motor to the switch, added a wire from the switch to the motor, and there's my on-off switch. And you can see the cute little dome I glued on the end there. You put the thick ACC on it, set it aside, and let it sit for overnight, and you get a nice, very hard um, um, push button, because, and there's a side view. I always insulate things. I stick a piece of paper underneath that just in case. This this is fairly thick, and to go through the hole, I had to recess this. So I did that on my milling machine. You could use a Dremel tool and whittle it out if you wanted to. I had to chisel this away with a rail nip for the wires to fit in. And then I put it together, and there's my push button. And so I can put the drill bit in the dimple and squeeze the button, and it starts. My Dremel tools, no matter what I do, even on slow, they're too fast and they burn the plastic. This thing is just the right speed. It's just perfect. And there's this is a Bethlehem Car Works B60B that I put handrails on using that drill bit and drill, and I didn't it didn't slide anywhere, didn't make a mess. This is the end of a Walther's car. I did have a little accident here, but on the other hand, there's not a handrail or a grab iron on these cars, the real cars that aren't bent in some way on the ends. So it looks fine. I'm happy with it. And that, folks, is it. Any guys got any questions?
Nope. Pretty clever guy,
Yeah,
Yeah, very nice.
and a lot of courage too. Some of us, I wouldn't take it apart. Some do. That's terrific.
Oh, it was easy to take apart a screwdriver. And when I saw how easy everything, I mean, quite literally, I just lifted everything out, and it just came out in one piece, and it didn't stretch out, didn't do anything stupid, and it dropped right back in. So it was pretty simple.
And here's the book on, if you guys, they're free from the Department of Transportation, if you're interested in all the wonderful codes on the cars.
Oh,
okay.
nice.
You just happen to have that, Lester.
Pardon?
You just happen to have that. That's interesting.
Oh, boy, I gotta see what the tank cars are carrying.
Yeah,
Ah, got it.
And it has it all, you know what I mean? If you look, see, all the codes are in there. All the cars, all the placards, and it has the like I say, it's a freebie book, Department of Transportation. Then your placards are all in there too.
And
Nice.
now you are on their list of potential terrorists. Saboteur.
You gotta gain knowledge somewhere.
You know, a freight conductor, they can get you all kinds of those little books.
yeah.
They got stacks of them in the yard office.
Well, they got all kinds of seminars for free that you can attend, and they keep you there, but they got lots of freebies that they'll send. And usually they'll send it once you sign up for the book or you get it, they'll usually send it to you a couple of years, several years free. Some of them do, sometimes some do not.
Huh. Very good. All right. Well, thanks, Ron. Thanks, Ken. Next week, we're going to take a week off. I have a commitment I have to do on what is that, the 15th, I guess, right?
You taking your van somewhere?
No, I'll be local here, but I just got a local thing I got to do. So we'll take a week off next week, and we'll be back at it on the 22nd. I don't have anything set up for the 22nd, so if you're interested in presenting, just let me know, and we'll get you on there. Thanks, guys. Have a great night.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Good night.